And ask the question, if an actually infinite number of things or number of events or something like that is impossible to be real, in the sense that we're using the term real, does God not count as an actual infinite?
Now, it's important to understand here, Alex, that this is not an objection to either premise. It would just show that the theist is going to have a problem too, but it doesn't do anything to refute the argument. Now, theists have typically, well, not typically, universally held that God is not composed of parts.
Yeah.
God is not an aggregate of definite and discrete elements that make up a collection, and therefore the notion of God's infinity is not a mathematical notion. It's not a quantitative notion. It's a qualitative notion. It means things like God is perfectly holy, omniscient, omnipotent, timeless, spaceless, and so forth. All of those sort of qualitative attributes go to make up God's infinity, but the infinity of God is not a quantitative concept.
Sure. The reason why I would have immediate trouble with this is thinking about, although the attributes of God that you mention are qualitatively infinite, there may be some room for applying quantitative infinites. For instance, if God is not dormant, right? If God is not just a kind of impersonal being that sits there doing nothing, we have an image of God that does things, that intervenes, that creates universes at particular times but not at others, would imply that perhaps you could ascribe to God something like an infinite series of events in terms of an infinite number of actions that he's caused, unless there's some point beyond which God is dormant. I don't see why you can't apply the same reasoning to say that if God commits actions, then God has committed an actually infinite set of actions.
What you're raising here, Alex, is the very interesting question of God's relationship to time.
Yeah.
And as you explained so well, if there is a series of successive events in God's life, then the same arguments against the infinitude of the past would apply to God that apply to the universe. And therefore, the classic proponents of this argument, like Al-Ghazali, argue that there is a beginning of time and that God existing beyond the universe, not before it, not before time, but beyond time, is timeless and unchanging and perfect. And that therefore the arguments are inapplicable to God because God doesn't have a past.